when London had a nightlife which pre-war had a boost. Of all the little ladybirds, Miss Fanny ruled the roost. She never did a decent thing, or so it was inferred, and in that sentence decent is the operative word. She looked the purest angel, though she hadn't any wings, but her eyes could promise seemingly quite unangelic things. Quite suddenly the world went bang, which Fanny found a bore. On her flatter note says Fanny doesn't live here anymore. Fanny is evacuated now. She couldn't stand the racket and the row. Every nightclub used to know her whats and wheres and to's and froms. She was envied by the dams, of course, and worshipped by the oms. She was the hottest thing in town before incendiary bombs. But Fanny is evacuated now. In the daytime as a mannequin, she used to look divine. At nighttime she was hostess in the bottle party line. So she always got 10 gents a dance and slept 'twixt 4 and 9. But Fanny is evacuated now. The village where she's gone to is enamoured by their guest, and every night the local lads put on their Sunday best, and all the village maidens get a very well-earned rest, for Fanny is evacuated now. Apart from bottle parties being closed, in itself no joke, her best clients joined the forces, got too old or else went broke. She'd have done most anything to earn herself a bob, but the only thing she knew in life was a dancing hostess job. Fanny was no coward and she never made a fuss. She read the plucky slogans which inspired the rest of us. Of course she meant to carry on, to work and see it through, but how could she go to it with just nothing to go to? Fanny is evacuated now. She couldn't stand the racket and the row. She thought she'd like a job of work and show esprit de corps. She funked a land girl's life, but said that what she'd just adore would be to be postmistress, as she'd often been before. For Fanny is evacuated now. She got an ounce of tea through merely strolling through the wood. She charged 6 lumps of sugar for a kiss, if in the mood. And for half a pound of butter, well, a lady must have food. And Fanny is evacuated now. The brave bucolic manhood, well, they simply went berserk. The farmers stopped their ploughing and their boys began to shirk. And even bulls lost interest in their usual type of work. For Fanny is evacuated now. Fanny is evacuated now. She couldn't stand the racket and the row. One day a regiment arrived to camp in neighbouring grounds. For British Army righteousness is something that astounds. But very soon the colonel just put Fanny out of bounds. So Fanny's been evacuated now. And how? Yes, Fanny's been evacuated now. Thousands of years ago, when most of the world was simply chaos, and even in Egypt there was no canal, but just Niles and Niles of nothing, everybody sat down by the waters of Babylon and wept like anything to irrigate the land and grow dates, most of which I've forgotten. About this time there was a chap called Ishmael Bey, the son of Ishmael Sambrello, who was the son of Ali Big Ben and Fatima Ghana, who was herself the daughter of a sheikh and the sister of Mercy Boku. One day this chap Ishmael was riding over the frightfully mighty desert on his camel called Sadie, and his new and only wife Clara was walking behind. All his other wives had fallen down an oasis further back and got drowned to death. Hubble, bubble, bubble. Ishmael was really journeying from one place to another, but as there were no real places in those days, he lost the way, and he and the camel had the hump, and his wife carried everything else, including the empty bucket with no water in it. As they plodded their way along, there was nothing but a stony sand and a stonier silence. Every now and then Ishmael called out Allah, because it is the only Arab word I know, and his wife and the camel called Allah after him, but that got them no further, and no water either, and they were terribly swamped, French for thirsty. But there was nothing in the bucket. Just for a moment let me pause poetically to paint the scene. In the sky the sun hanged or hung, nothing like a ball of fire, while a million stars twinkled back at our wanderers as if to say, what ho! But there was no ho, French for water. Every now and then some vultures ceased their pretty singing to swoop down for pray, only to find that they were too early. Ever the heat beat remorseful. Ever the heat beat up from the hard-boiled or half-baked earth, blinding even the bats which whizzed by playing cricket. Here we will rest for the night, all praise, suddenly exclaimed Ishmael, and the camel immediately sat down on its haunches.
and on Clara, and both died. Clara had been squashed in life, but never so squashed as now. Ishmael was in despair. She'd been carrying the provender, sardines, and everything. She was now without camel, Clara, or cocoa, but still had the empty bucket. "Oh, thou locust flower," he cried, lapsing into Chinese, "this is South Sudan." And he swore frightfully that he would build a monument over her, which should be high enough also to bring aid and lemonade to him. Thereupon he looked round for the wherewithal, for an Arab's word is his Bond Street. All that he could see were bits of Egyptian rock, with Cairo written all through. He was very strong, and began heaping them over the camel, and therefore over his late lamented wife. This went on for days. He got braver and braver, bolder and bolder, until there were no more boulders in sight. The shapeless mass now stood silhouetted against the horizon, or near there. Ishmael looked up at it for a week or two, and then whipping out his yashmak, a sort of Turkish dagger, he started planing and carving the granite. When he had quite finished, he kicked the bucket, which was still empty. But that is not the end of the story, because years later a bunch of Egyptians found this tomb, and one of their priests wept bitterly, and cried out to the camp followers, "Listen ye, thus shall we build our graves." All who heard him started dancing with tears in their eyes, and echoed his words, "Thus shall we build our graves," and they did, and hence the pyramids.